I'm doing a video on fights to make next after UFC 308, Elite Topuria versus Max Holloway. And we're going to do, some losers, some winners, mostly winners. And really just people I think are important in the MMA world right now. Starting with Jeff Neal, he's coming off a great win versus RDA. Like I said, I think the win will be shunned based off the fact that RDA got a knee injury. But he was going to knock out RDA in that first round, guaranteed. He already rocked him twice before that knee injury. He looked great. He looked great. He looked like the old Jeff Neal, the Jeff Neal that wasn't afraid to go to war, that wasn't afraid to take a shot, to give a shot, like he was against Ian Gary. I think he's found his drive again after being out a while. I like him. I think he probably doesn't deserve a step up just yet, but he doesn't deserve to fight way down the rankings. He's number 10. He doesn't deserve to fight like Prates or something, even though Prates is booked. He's booked, I mean. I want to see him fight Michael Morales. Michael Morales, in my opinion, is a dark horse of the welterweight division. People don't know he's really ranked. Not a lot of people know who he is. He's not a huge star. I just feel like when I talk about welterweight, when I hear people talk about welterweight, they don't talk about Michael Morales. Michael Morales isn't headlining a card. I think he did against Neil Magny, or he was like Coleman, but he's not headlining a card. He's not a really big draw, but he's really young. He's a good fighter. He's ranked number 12, I believe. Jeff Neal, I believe, is number 10. I'd say just book it. These guys are two athletic freaks. I want to see how good Michael Morales can be. I already know he's very technical. I already know he's very strong. It's the same with Jeff Neal. They're both very strong. They have knockout power. These guys can go to war. I'd be fine with this being a fight night main event. I'd love to watch this. And it would be a huge step up for Michael Morales. If Jeff Neal wins, it's a huge prospect that he's beaten. Someone who hasn't really... I will say, Mike Morales hasn't exactly proved himself. He knocked out Neil Magny in the first round. Very hard to do. Neil Magny is a veteran. He might not be the best, but he's fairly experienced. He's a veteran. And he's tricky. He's really tricky for a lot of people. I'd say give him Jeff Neal. Just based off the fact that we need to see how good he is. And this would be a war. This would most likely be a fight of the night candidate for sure. Especially if Jeff Neal looks like his old self, where he just wants to knock people out. Because Michael Morales, he just loves to fight. These people just love to fight. And they love to just get highlights. Michael Morales he's young. He's motivated. He wants to prove himself. Let's give him a step up. He went through Neil Magny with ease. He's definitely on he's on a higher level than a lot of people think he is. Like I said, not a lot of people really think about him that much when it comes to welterweight. But he is a good fighter. He's up and coming. And he's already ranked. So you might as well book it. Also, Jeff Neal took no damage. And Michael Morales has been sitting out for a while. I could see this happening in like the next 2 to 3 months. Like I said, they're both on a similar schedule at the moment. Shara Bullet versus Paulo Costa. I think this is the right one. Just clearly based off the fact that, if you remember, Ikram Aliskerov was supposed to fight Paulo Costa. I don't know if you all remember that. It got canceled, but they booked that originally. And in my opinion, I'm like, okay, if they booked Ikram versus Paulo, I understand Ikram looked amazing in his fights, and he looked like he could be a future champion. Shara, while he doesn't show as much potential, he has a bigger name than Ikram, in my opinion. And I think they don't mind giving Shara a huge jump up. Obviously, they're protecting him. I would have said fight Kevin Holland, but I don't know what Kevin Holland plans on doing. I think give it to Paulo. Paulo has to defend his ranking. I think he's top 10. I think he's a number 11, actually. But he's on a 3-fight losing streak. They just cut Nicolau. Nicolau was on a 3-fight losing streak, I think. But he was still ranked. So I would say Shara. I'd say give Shara this matchup. He needs a jump up. And honestly, I feel like he needs some competition. People were saying, oh, Bo Nickel. You just want to see Bo Nickel destroy him. That's not really a jump up. This is a jump up. Paulo Costa, fight night main event, Shara versus Paulo. Paulo will fight you anywhere. He'll fight in Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi. He doesn't care. I think Paulo might be the only one willing to take this matchup in the rankings. And Shara is now ranked. I believe Shara is number 14. I say we do this. Paulo Costa, like I said, he needs to defend his rank. They're only 3 rankings apart. He'd still be ranked if he loses. And And if Paulo Costa wins, you can be talking about some big matchups. Paulo Costa versus Cannonier if he wins this. You can be talking about some big stuff. But you just can't talk about it now because he's on a 3-fight losing streak. If Shara wins this, you could probably jump him up to number 5, like top 5 in the divisions, fighting like the loser of Chimaev or Dricus. You can really jump him up. You know, he has Dagestani privilege. That's a real thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Dana White wants to jump him up really fast. And I'd say jump him up, put him against Paulo Costa. I think Paulo Costa will beat him. And I really hope he does. But Shara is a cool fighter. Both big names, and whoever wins this will just be a bigger name. Lerone Murphy versus Josh Emmett. I wanted to go Lerone Murphy versus Arnold Allen, and then I realized they're both British. I want to go Lerone Murphy versus Yair Rodriguez, and then I realized they're going to do Arnold Allen versus Yair Rodriguez. And I'm like, okay. Everybody else, for the most part, is booked. I don't see Brian Ortega fighting at featherweight anymore. I think Brian Ortega is going to lightweight. Who else is there to fight? So I was looking around, and I remembered Josh Emmett. I don't usually think about Josh Emmett that much, just because he had that 2 years where he didn't fight. But he's back. He's got knockout power. He already has a highlight. He already knocked out Bryce Mitchell. I want to say he's coming off a loss, but his last fight I can remember is Bryce Mitchell. He's in a weird situation. I don't really know much about his record at the moment. But I think Lerone Murphy, despite if he's coming off a loss or not, or a win, I think Lerone Murphy would be a great matchup for Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett, I want to say he wants to defend his ranking. I don't want to see Josh Emmett sit out. I really don't. He's been a guy to sit out already. I know he was injured, and that's why it took 2 years. I don't want to see Josh Emmett sit out. And I'm tired of people in featherweight sitting out like Brian Ortega did it for a while, where he was on like a 4-fight losing streak, 3-fight losing streak, but he was still like top 3 just because he didn't fight anyone. I think Lerone Murphy, good performance against Dan Ige. I know it's only Dan Ige, but Dan Ige is a good fighter. His ranking doesn't actually justify how good he is. It doesn't show how good he is. And Lerone Murphy is 15-0. That's enough to really jump someone up. He needs to step up in competition. I believe he's ranked number 11. Josh Emmett's around 6 or 7. He needs to jump up. If he wins this, he fights in a title eliminator. And the way I'm seeing this is like a bracket. On this side of the bracket, you have Arnold Allen, Yair. On this side of the bracket, Lerone Murphy, Josh Emmett. The winner of both those fights, they go into the middle, they fight, they get a title shot after. That's how I'm thinking about it. That would be like, it'll take like a year for that to fully develop, but that's how I'm thinking. This is how you set up a division. You do 1-2, 1-2. The winner of both those fights, they fight each other, and to make a third fight. That's how I'm thinking about it. I'm leaning with Lerone Murphy, but Josh Emmett's really good. I'm not going to sleep on that. Alexander Rakic. I wanted him to fight Krylov, and then I realized Krylov's booked. And then you can't give him a jump up. And so I was thinking, okay, let's make him fight Carlos Ulberg or Volk and Ozdemir. Obviously, they're both fighting each other. This is really the only option I can think of. And I remember Johnny Walker saying, okay, I want to move to heavyweight, but I haven't heard him say anything about that recently. I haven't seen anything about that recently, so I don't know if that's true or not. Obviously, I heard him say it, but that was months ago. That was like right after his loss. And I haven't seen him bulking up. I don't follow the Johnny Walker, so maybe that's why. However, I feel like someone else will put out news that he's moving up to heavyweight. He doesn't have a matchup. We haven't heard any rumors about a matchup for him. And I don't want to see Johnny Walker get a jump up in ranking, especially after losing 2 times in a row badly. But I want to see Rakic defend his spot, and everybody from 5 to about 11 is basically booked. And even if they're not booked, they're not in the right schedule to fight Rakic. I think Johnny Walker's in the right schedule. Rakic didn't really take any damage. I'm thinking he wants to probably get back in there. Obviously he lost, but he didn't really take much damage. We saw the fight. I think he'll want to get back in there, especially after all the time he lost with the injury. I think Johnny Walker's the guy to do it. If they win, that's great. If Johnny Walker wins, he's already a big name. If he gets a top 5 ranking along with it, that's something for the UFC. That's something they can work with. If Rakic wins, he probably gets a really good knockout against Johnny Walker. And he's usually a boring fighter, so it's like, if he gets a knockout, that's pretty good. That's better for the highlights. And it's not a bad win. I mean, Ankalaev almost got a title shot after beating Johnny Walker. It's not really a bad win. I understand Uzdemir knocked out Johnny Walker recently, but it's still Johnny Walker. It's still in it for both of these fighters. I'm pretty sure Rakic believes he's better than Johnny Walker. And this will probably give him the confidence boost that he needs. Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. As a joke, I would have said it'd be a lot funnier if he just fought Khalil Roundtree instead of Alex Pereira, but I mean, there's no denying it. He deserves Alex Pereira, but the reason I don't like it is because I feel like Ankalaev in any other division, he wouldn't deserve this. It's just all the top 3 that I'm thinking of, beside at least skill-wise, I don't think Ankalaev's amazing. I mean, Jiri doesn't deserve a title shot. Jamal Hill doesn't deserve a title shot. Jan Blachowicz, they're all coming off losses. I mean, at this point, Ankalaev is the only guy. With his best win being Rakic, who just got knocked out by Jiri. He's the only guy coming off a win that deserves a title shot, in my opinion. But I will say, I don't think this is Pereira's next fight. I think this is Ankalaev's next fight, but I don't think it's Pereira's. What I mean by that is, I think Pereira will fight Tom Aspinall. I think he'll fight Tom Aspinall, and then he'll come down and he'll fight Ankalaev, win or lose, I believe. I don't see Ankalaev taking another fight. I see him completely fine with waiting for Alex Pereira to come back. And I think at this point he's tired of fighting other people. He's probably willing to just wait. But I do think Ankalaev will probably get knocked out by Pereira just because he's more of a kickboxer than a striker nowadays. Or he's more of a kickboxer than a wrestler nowadays. And his kickboxing's not that great. So I'm going to say it how it is. Like, he knocked out Johnny Walker. Good job, man. He knocked out Kutalava. Great. He's on like a 3-fight losing streak. Like I said, I think he's the only option though. So even though he might not deserve it, he deserves it a lot more than anyone else at light heavyweight. He's the only option. Robert Whittaker, I debated on putting him in this or not, just purely based off the fact that I don't know how bad his jaw is. We know it's bad, right? Or that's what we saw. And we assumed it was bad. The doctor said, okay, it's going to have to wire it up for a long time. So we assumed he's out. We assumed he might retire. I thought he would retire. And then I saw a video of him earlier today where he's just talking completely fine. And this is after the fight. He said he's fine. He was talking fine. He looked fine. His jaw was perfectly fine, it looked like. And he was saying that his teeth were already loose, but like, obviously that's not the extent of it. That's obviously not all that happened. But he seems fine, and I'm not really a doctor. I can't just be like, okay, I don't believe him. I mean, he said he's fine. And I have no reason to think he's not fine after literally staring at him. It's like watching someone get in a car crash, and then you look at them the next day, and they're perfectly fine. Like, they say, oh yeah, I was in a really bad car crash and my car flipped over. But they're just staring at you perfectly fine. Like, they're just, like, normal. It was insane to see. And honestly, if he's actually fine, he's still going to take some time off, I believe. That he's still injured at the end of the day. He's not just fine. But he's at least a lot better than we thought he was. Chao Baralho, I think Chao Baralho should fight him. Chao Baralho deserves a huge step up. I mean, he beat Jared Cannonier really dominantly. It wasn't close. That's a great performance. You don't just beat Jared Cannonier like that and you don't get anything out of it. He's going to fight Robert Whittaker, in my opinion. But I do think this fight will take a little bit to develop. Maybe 5 months, 6 months from now. I don't know how bad the jaw injury is. But if it's as good as I think it is, based on what I saw, I think he'll take it. Chao Baralho's number 5. If Whittaker loses, you know Whittaker loves to prove himself. You know Chao Baralho is a striker. He's really confident in striking. I think Whittaker likes his chances against him. And Chao Baralho's not really a guy who starts early. He doesn't really start early. In my opinion, Whittaker's weakness is that he starts very slow. So it's like, He fits the matchup. I think Whitaker would love to take this fight. I think Chao Barala would love a step up. And they both deserve it. Whitaker has to defend his ranking. Chao Barala also has to, he needs to jump up. He's not going to fight Adesanya. He's not going to fight Imaivov. I mean, he's not going to fight Hamzat. He's not going to fight Sean Strickland. Like, this is the only other guy who's a jump up for him. So I would say this is definitely the fight to make on a fight night main event, or even a co-main event on a pay-per-view, I would say. I mean, this is kind of just it, right? Like, I will say, so similar to the Alex Pereira situation, I do believe this is Hamzat's next fight. I don't believe this is Dricus' next fight. I think Dricus will fight in Sydney, Australia, against Sean Strickland, number 2. And I think Hamzat is perfectly fine. We know Hamzat's perfectly fine with sitting out and waiting. I think he's perfectly fine with waiting for Dricus to fight, especially in February, because that's only, what, basically 4 months from now, because it's the 30th, or it's the 29th already. It's like, that's basically just 4 months from now. He's going to be perfectly fine with waiting till then. He probably wants to. He's not going to fight Dricus in Australia. At the end of the day, it's like, Dana White made it really clear that Sean Strickland's getting a title shot. Whether he deserves it or not, that's up for debate, but he made it very clear Sean Strickland's getting a title shot against Dricus. And we know Hamzat. We know he's perfectly fine with waiting. We know Dricus, even though he might not seem active, even though people hate him, he's decently active for a champion. He loves to fight. He's one of the most entertaining champions. You can argue with anyone on that. He's one of the most entertaining. He looks good. I'm sure he'll love to fight Hamzat. I think he beats Hamzat, but with Hamzat, we just never know. I'm sure he'd love to fight him. But like I said, I don't think it will be Dricus' next fight. I think Dricus will fight Sean Strickland for sure. Moving on to Max Holloway, I'd love to give Max Holloway a featherweight ranking. He's done with featherweight, in my opinion. I think he's clearly done with featherweight. He got knocked out. The last thing I want to see when someone gets knocked out is to go back to that weight class. If you get knocked out, you might as well move up, just so your chin gets a little better. And we've seen Max Holloway. He struggled with the weight cuts before. And there's no one else for him to fight. There's no reason for him to stay at featherweight. His chin will get better if he moves up to lightweight. We already saw it against Gaethje. There's more matchups at lightweight. He's still in the top rankings. And he's fought everybody at featherweight there is to fight. That would help him at least. He's not getting a rematch against Topuria. He's not going to rematch Volkanovski. He's not going to fight Diego Lopez. That's really it. And he's already been talking about moving up to lightweight. He's already high ranked. It's just a fresh new pool of just really good matchups, more money for him. Everything's at lightweight for him. I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, he should fight Dustin Poirier." I don't agree with that. I personally think that he'll fight Dan Hooker. I don't think he'll fight Charles Oliveira, based off the fact that Charles Oliveira is already booked. And I think Oliveira versus Chandler, that could really be a slugfest where they both take a lot of damage. And I don't think the schedules will align that well. I think Max Holloway, even though he did get knocked out, he's still probably decently lightweight size. I mean, he bulked up pretty fast to lightweight. I think he'll be perfectly fine with taking on Dan Hooker, who doesn't seem to have an opponent. And I don't think anyone's going to fight Dan Hooker. Maybe Conor, but I don't see that happening. I don't think he deserves like a top 2 matchup against like Arman Tsarukyan. I don't think he deserves that, with all due respect to Max Holloway. I'd say Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's top 5. He beat Gamrot. I mean, I think Gamrot got robbed, but he did beat Gamrot. It's in a scenario where Max Holloway doesn't deserve Arman Tsarukyan. Maybe Poirier, but I don't think he'll get Poirier. I don't think he'll get Oliveira, Chandler, or McGregor, so I would say just book Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker does not have a fight. If Max Holloway wins, you could be like, you know what? It's Max Holloway. You could probably just give him the title shot, even if he wins. It doesn't matter against who. If he wins, give him a title shot. Who cares? Especially if he does really good against Dan Hooker, which I think he'll destroy Dan Hooker. If he beats him in like incredible fashion, that's 2 wins at lightweight he already has against top people. You could book him for a title shot immediately, and he would most likely win this fight. I would go with the safer option and say, hey, if he loses, we lose his big name. Like, he's not a big name anymore. Obviously, he still is, but he's not. He's not going to be fighting for belts if he loses. If he wins this, we can justify a title shot. So I would say they're going to take the safe option and go Dan Hooker. And this will be an absolute war. Dan Hooker loves to fight. Holloway loves to fight. I could see this being a real war. And this one I'm a little confused about. Because I know a lot of people want Diego Lopez to fight Ilia Topuria, but in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to see Volk get knocked out. I really don't. But you also can't deny that he really deserves it. People have been saying, oh shit, my bad. People have been saying, oh, don't give Volk the title shot. He's just going to get knocked out again. But that's not the point. The point is he deserves it based on what he did at featherweight and based on the circumstances that he took to fight against Topuria the first time. It's like, yeah, he got knocked out, but he's took time off. That fight was in February. He's not going to fight until at least next February. It's like, he's going to have a full year off. His chin's definitely recovered. He's got to be fine. He seems ready to fight anybody. He said he's ready to fight Diego Lopez for an interim title, but that's not going to happen because Ilya's not injured. He just wants to fight for the belt, and we owe him that much. Like, he is arguably the featherweight GOAT. He went up to lightweight on 11 days' notice just to help us. Like, just to help the people who wanted to watch the pay-per-view. He saved the card. He turned back around in February when we didn't know what was going to happen in February. He loves to fight. He took his time off. His chin's definitely recovered. I don't think it's a situation where, he's never going to be the same. I think after taking a year off, he's clearly training because all he wants to do is fight. He doesn't care when it's booked. He's clearly in the gym training. I think he's fine. I think he'll look better than he did in the first fight. Do I think he'll get knocked out? Probably. Do I think he'll lose? Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like he deserves it. If Adesanya can get knocked out by Pereira, come back really pretty soon and knock out Pereira, why don't we do the same for Volk? I mean, Adesanya got 2 instant rematches. That's the least we could give Volk, an instant rematch. The least. He deserves it more than Diego Lopez. He really deserves it. Like I said, I don't want to see him get knocked out. I don't think it'll be an easy win for Ilia Topuria because a lot of people are saying, it'd be an easy win. Ilia Topuria would just fold him again. This is Volkanovski for a year off. He's in the gym. He's been sparring, to my knowledge. I think he'd been sparring if he's been in the gym for a year. I think we'll see a different Volkanovski. I think his chin will be healed. People aren't really thinking about that. They're saying, his chin's done. He's broken. It's like, his chin was done from Makhachev. He came back in about 4 months, fought again. These are completely different circumstances. His chin was already going to be weaker when he fought in February. That's just how it works. And he was still taking a couple punches from Ilya. If you watch the first round, second round, he took a couple punches from Ilya. His chin's not completely gone. And with a year off, it's definitely not gone. I can only see it recovering. I think he'll be fine to come back in about maybe March, April. I don't think he'll fight in Sydney, even though he should. He really should. Ilya already said no. And they're not going to make an interim title because Ilya's not injured. So it's like, if he wants to fight, I think he'll wait for Ilya. I really do, until March or April. He deserves it. Like I said, if Adesanya can get 2, we can give Volk at least 1. At least. After everything he's done, he saved cards. After everything he's done, he deserves it. It's not about if you think he'll get knocked out. It's about he deserves it. And about fairness. And I think the UFC will grant him his wish, even though they don't seem they don't seem happy about it. At the end of the day, if it's what he wants, give it to him. He's already stepped up. He's already done everything he can to deserve this. So that's the video. Like, subscribe if you enjoyed it. Really, everything helps. Everything. Literally everything helps. I mean, like I said, just Volk, he deserves it. He really does. But yeah, I appreciate all the support. I don't know if I'll make a video tomorrow because tomorrow's my sister's birthday. I don't know if I'll do a video the next day because it's Halloween. But I will for sure be here Friday. I'll for sure make a video. And I might make a video on Halloween anyway, just because why not? But I appreciate everything, and I hope to see y'all again.